Hey everyone, I'm Mr. Nightvale. Tonight's video features 5 true scary stories that all took place during December, snowstorms, moments where the cold, isolation, and darkness made already bad situations far worse. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and you can always change your mind later. And if you have an idea for a future video, feel free to leave it in the comments. Let's get into it. Story 1. The call that shouldn't exist. I was the last responder still on the road that night. The storm had rolled in faster than anyone expected. Thick, wet snow, driven sideways by wind that howled through the valleys like something alive. Visibility was almost non-existent. Even with my high beams on, I couldn't see more than a few feet past the hood of my truck. Most units had already been pulled off the road. I should have been done too. Then dispatch called. Her voice wasn't panicked, that was the strange part. It was hesitant, like she wasn't sure she should even be saying the words out loud. She told me a woman had called in from somewhere off Route 71. The caller claimed there was a stalled car near her property. Inside the car, she said, was a toddler, alone, no license plate, no vehicle description, no clear location. The call dropped halfway through. They tried calling her back, nothing. GPS couldn't lock onto a clean signal, just a rough estimate pointing toward a stretch of farmland that had been abandoned for years. Dispatch told me I could leave it for morning, but all I could think about was the word toddler. So I told them I'd check it out. It took nearly 20 minutes of creeping along snow-covered back roads before I found what looked like a driveway, if you could even call it that. No signposts, no mailbox, just a narrow break in the trees and a few old fence posts barely visible under the snow. I made it halfway in before my plow struck something hard beneath the surface, metal. The impact jolted the truck so hard it rattled my teeth. I stopped, turned on my hazards, and stepped out. The cold was immediate, heavy, wet snow soaking into my boots, clinging to my coat, sliding down the back of my neck. The silence was worse. No wind here, no animal sounds, just snowfall swallowing everything. I expected to see tracks, tire marks, footprints, anything. There was nothing. The snow around me was perfectly smooth. Still, I followed the driveway deeper in. That's when I saw the house. An old farmhouse leaning slightly to one side, roof sagging, porch half collapsed. It looked like it hadn't been lived in for decades. And parked near the tree line, a sedan. Engine running, headlights on, sitting at a strange angle, like it had tried to back away from the house and failed. I approached slowly. The windows were fogged over, but I could see a shape in the driver's seat. Someone sitting perfectly still. I knocked on the glass. Nothing. I opened the passenger door. Warm air rushed out, thick, stale, and mixed with a sharp, metallic smell that caught in my throat. Inside sat a woman. Her hands were locked around the steering wheel, her posture rigid, calm. A small child slept on her lap. The windshield was smeared from the inside. Not frost, not condensation. Handprints. Long, dragging streaks like fingers had been tracing the glass. I asked if she was okay. Slowly, unnaturally slowly, she turned her head toward me. He didn't want to stay in the house anymore, she said. I asked if she was the one who called for help. She shook her head. The child stirred. She brushed his hair gently and whispered, "He doesn't like snow. It makes him remember." That's when she looked past me. "You're not supposed to be here yet." My radio crackled with nothing but static. Then she said quietly, "They're watching you." Behind me, the house felt closer, like it had leaned in. I took the child. As I pulled him free, I saw words traced into the fogged windshield. "He is mine." The engine died, the lights went out. When I turned back, the woman was gone. No footprints, no sound, nothing. The child opened his eyes in my truck and said, "I told her you'd come instead." The house had been abandoned for 10 years. No record of the call ever existed. Story 2, the shelter. Above the truck, I've worked road maintenance for over a decade. Snowstorms don't scare me, but that one did. It was lake effect snow, the kind that doesn't fall, it attacks. Visibility dropped to nothing. The plows were pulled off the roads completely. Dispatch called about a truck parked at a trailhead pull-off. Lights off, engine cold. Someone nearby had reported hearing one loud bang echo through the hills. Just one. When I arrived, the pull-off was untouched. No tracks, no signs of recent movement. The truck sat beneath a wooden shelter. I knocked, no response. When I opened the door, I saw the shotgun resting across his lap. I stepped back. From the passenger side, I shined my flashlight in. The man had no face. The blast had gone upward straight through the roof of the shelter. Wood splintered from the inside out. Snow drifted down into the cab, landing silently on his shoulders. His phone sat unlocked in the cup holder. No message, no call log, no heater running. It didn't feel like panic. It felt planned, careful. And beneath that shelter, the storm sounded muted, like something had pressed pause on the world. They fixed the shelter later. But the scar is still there, and I never stop at that trailhead. Story 3. The man who knew her name. My niece Clara stayed with me the week before Christmas. Her parents, my sister and her husband, had gone south to escape the winter, and I offered to keep Clara with me in Vermont so she wouldn't miss school. She was 6 years old, bright, curious, and endlessly energetic. The kind of kid who talked to strangers without fear and asked questions adults didn't always know how to answer. I lived close to her school, close enough that we walked every morning. Snow didn't bother her. If anything, she loved it more than summer. That's why the cancellation crushed her. The town had planned its annual tree lighting ceremony that Friday night. Carolers, hot chocolate, lights strung through the park. Clara had talked about it non-stop for days. Then the snow came. Not gentle snow, not the pretty kind. Heavy flakes that slammed into the ground and piled up fast. By late afternoon, the roads were already slick. By 5, the event was officially cancelled. I watched Clara try to hide how disappointed she was. She nodded and said it was okay, but her shoulders sagged in that quiet way kids do when they're trying to be brave. So I suggested something else. A small church lot a few blocks away sold last-minute Christmas trees every year. It wasn't much, just floodlights, crooked rows of trees, and a generator humming in the cold, but I figured it was better than nothing. She lit up instantly. We bundled up and walked. The snow was deep enough that every step made a soft crunch. The sidewalks were unplowed, so Clara stomped through drifts like she was on an expedition, leaving neat little footprints behind her. She ran ahead, then doubled back, laughing, spinning in circles, letting snowflakes land on her tongue. I let her wander a little, never too far, calling her name now and then, just to hear her answer. When we reached the lot, there were only 2 other families there. The smell of pine was thick in the air, mixing with gasoline fumes from the generator. Clara darted between the trees, pointing out favorites, changing her mind every few seconds. I turned for less than half a minute to speak to the man at the checkout shed, just small talk about prices and weather. When I looked back, Clara was gone. At first, my brain refused to accept it. I scanned the rows, expecting to see her crouched behind a tree, giggling. I called her name. No answer. I walked faster, heart starting to pound. Then I saw the footprints, her small boots in the snow, and next to them larger ones, adult. They moved together toward the street. I followed them until they disappeared into churned snow near the curb. That's when I saw them. Across the intersection, under a flickering streetlight, stood a man in a dark coat. Clara was beside him, not struggling, not crying. He held her wrist low, subtle, casual. From a distance, it looked normal, like a father and daughter. I shouted her name. Clara snapped her head toward me. The man didn't flinch, didn't rush, didn't tighten his grip. He just stood there, watching me. As I ran closer, I saw his face clearly, mid-40s, patchy beard, pale skin, and his eyes empty, not angry, not startled, just blank. Clara began tugging at his hand. Small movements at first, then harder. I reached them just as she yanked herself free and bolted toward me. I dropped to my knees and caught her, wrapping her up, holding her tighter than I ever had before. She was shaking violently, breath hitching. Behind us, the man walked away, didn't run, didn't look back, just crossed the street like nothing had happened. Then I saw the second man. He stepped out from behind a bus shelter I hadn't even noticed. No words exchanged. They simply fell into step beside each other and disappeared down the road. The police came quickly. Clara told them the man said he needed help finding his dog. She said she believed him, until he grabbed her wrist. Then she said something that still keeps me awake. "I didn't like his eyes," she whispered. "They didn't look real." One officer told me this wasn't the first report like it. 2 men, 1 distraction, 1 backup, planned, intentional. We moved a few weeks later. Clara still hates snow and she never walks ahead of me anymore. Story 4, the store that shouldn't have been open. That winter, my parents flew out to Arizona to spend Christmas with my grandmother. I stayed behind, partly because of work, partly because I didn't mind being alone. I had just started a job at a small, no-frills gas station off Route 49, the kind of place that sold coffee, cigarettes, and hope in equal measure. The owner, Frank, was desperate for someone to cover holiday shifts, and I needed the money. The night the storm hit, I was scheduled to close, alone. The weather reports had been warning about a major whiteout all day, but by 9 that evening, it still didn't seem that bad. Snow drifted down lazily. Wind hadn't picked up yet. Traffic was already light, but not gone. I finished mopping near the coffee station when headlights washed across the front windows. A sedan pulled into the lot, old, grey, boxy. It looked like it belonged to another decade. The driver stepped out quickly, shoulders hunched against the cold. He wasn't dressed for the weather. Heavy coat, yes, but no gloves, no hat. His hands were bare and red, like the skin had been exposed for too long. He didn't greet me, didn't browse. He went straight to the soda coolers and stood there, just stood. I called out a greeting, nothing. When he finally turned and walked toward the counter, his steps were measured, almost careful. "How late are you open?" he asked. His voice was flat. 11, I said. He paused. "You here by yourself?" I answered without thinking. "Yes." His mouth twitched, not a smile, not quite. "Brave," he said. "Not many people like being alone out here." Then he left. No purchase, no rush, just gone. By 10:15, the storm had changed. The snow came sideways now, slamming against the windows so hard it sounded like gravel. I decided to close early. That's when I heard the tapping. Soft, deliberate, coming from the back door. We never used that door. It was chained from the inside, heavy metal, solid. The tapping stopped when I got close. Then came the dragging sound, slow, scraping, like something heavy being pulled along the outside wall. I called Frank. He told me to stay inside and said he'd call the sheriff. Minutes later, the store phone rang. I picked it up. Silence. Then a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have lied." I hung up. My phone had no signal. At 10:47, the front door opened. I know it was locked. The same man walked in. His hands looked worse now, skin split, raw, almost wet. "You're not supposed to be open," he said. "I'm closing," I replied. He tilted his head. "Someone's in the back." Before I could respond, he leaned in slightly. "Tell them they don't have long." Then the lights went out. Complete darkness. I ran to the door. Outside, the snow was perfect. No tire tracks, no footprints, like nothing had ever been there. The scraping began again, closer, deeper. They found long scratches on the back door in the morning, deep ones, no tracks. I quit that day. I never work alone in December anymore. Story 5, The Mountain That Didn't Want Us. There, I took the job because it was temporary. Just a few weeks of extra cash before Christmas, nothing serious. A private cabin retreat up in northern Idaho, buried deep in the mountains. Wealthy guests, empty forests, miles of snow-covered nothing. I had just finished school and didn't really know what came next. This job felt like a pause button, somewhere quiet to think. That winter was brutal, snow fell early and never stopped. By mid-December, the road up the mountain was barely passable. Guests cancelled one by one until only staff remained. 3 days before Christmas, a massive storm rolled in, whiteout conditions. The site manager called and asked if I could stay overnight in the main lodge to monitor equipment and cameras. He said I wouldn't be completely alone. Another temp, Darren, was assigned night patrol. I agreed. The lodge was warm, fireplace going, pantry stocked. Compared to my freezing apartment back in town, it felt almost comfortable. Darren and I ate together around 6. He was quiet but normal, the kind of guy who didn't talk much unless spoken to. Around 7, he bundled up and headed out to start his patrol loop. That was the last normal thing that happened. By 8, the storm had swallowed everything. You couldn't see more than 20 feet past the windows. Snow hammered the lodge like it wanted inside. At 8:40, Darren radioed in. "Cabin 6, back door is open," he said. "Looks like the wind blew it in." Cabin 6 was the farthest out, deep in the trees, poor signal. I offered to go with him. He declined. "I'll be quick," he said. He never checked in again. At first, I told myself it was nothing, storm interference, dead zones. But by 9:30, the camera feeds began to freeze, not all at once, one by one, black screens. When I rebooted the system, only one camera came back, cabin 6. The image was frozen on the hallway inside the cabin, no movement, no sound. I texted Darren, nothing, called him, straight to voicemail. That's when I put my coat on. The hike to cabin 6 was hell. Snow past my knees, wind burning my face. The flashlight barely helped the beam, just reflected back in dull, white halos. The back door of the cabin was still open. Inside it was colder than outside. Boot prints led down the hallway. 2 sets. One was Darren's, the other wasn't. Smaller, narrower, wrong. Darren's tracks ended at the bathroom. His jacket lay on the floor, so did his radio. The bathroom door was shut. The light was on. I opened it. Empty, but the space heater was running. His phone sat on the sink, unlocked. One message on the screen from an unknown number. It read, "Look up." I didn't want to, but I did. The flashlight hit the ceiling. An old square vent stood open, dark, too dark. And then I felt it. Warm air, not heat, breath, slow, close, like something exhaling just above my face. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the lodge, locked every door, checked the windows. The radios were dead. The landline had no dial tone. At exactly 11, the camera feed returned. Cabin 6, hallway, live. I stared at the screen. Nothing happened. Then someone walked through the frame, fast, wrong build. Not Darren. I didn't wait. There was an old snowmobile reserved for emergencies. I got it running somehow and drove blind through 5 miles of storm until I reached the ranger station. They went back the next morning. They found Darren alive, barely, face down in the snow behind cabin 4. He didn't remember anything after entering cabin 6. The last thing he recalled was hearing a voice in the vents. It whispered, "That's it." I quit that day, left town before sunset. I still don't go into the mountains in winter. Some places don't want witnesses. Snowstorms are supposed to be quiet, peaceful. But the truth is, they isolate us. They erase evidence. They make it easy for things to happen without being seen. And sometimes they don't bring something with them. Sometimes they wake something up. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which story stayed with you the longest. Until next time, I'm Mr. Skeleton, and I'll see you in the dark.